Good evening, welcome to
KidMath number 78.
KidMath number 78. So this is the second to last one in our series about square roots and cube roots. And we've done a couple movies in a row that started from the question that you asked me of why does the cube root of 343, which equals
7.
Why is there only one solution when something like the square root of 49 we could have plus or minus 7? And we've talked about a lot of different things, but we did look at the cube roots of 1. So this equation, x cubed minus 1 equals 0. And we factored it. And we found that we had solutions x equals 1 and x equals negative 1 plus I times the square root of 3 over 2. And actually, that's right, plus or minus. X equals negative 1 plus or minus I times the square root of 3 over 2. So we actually had 3 solutions. It's easy to see that 1 works.
Because 1 cubed is still 1.
1 cubed does equal 1, or 1 cubed minus 1 is equal 0. But we've never actually bothered to check that one of these works. So which one do you want to check?
Let's do the plus.
Okay, so we're going to check that when we set x equal negative 1 plus I times the square root of 3 over 2.
And we cube it.
And we cube this.
Well, I know it's going to be...
Okay. Let's find the square first. When we cube it, what were you going to say?
Well, I know it's going to be over 8.
It's okay, so good point. So let's ignore the 1/2 for a minute and bring that in at the end and divide by 8. So let's just do 2x equals negative 1 plus I times the square root of 3. And this cubed should be 8. If this cubed is 1, this cube should be 8, right? Okay, so that's actually a very good observation. So let's square it first. Negative 1 plus I times the square root of 3 times negative 1 plus I times the square root of 3. How do I multiply that out?
Well, multiply it through like this, and then through like that.
Okay, so why don't you write it over here?
So we get 1.
1.
Well, actually minus.
Okay, back up a little.
Minus I times the square root of 3.
Okay, that's this one. Okay, now we get I times the square root of 3 times minus 1.
Minus I times the square root of 3.
And then I times the square root of 3 times I times the square root of 3.
Which is, it's negative 3.
Very good. The I squareds give you a minus 1, and the square root of 3 times the square root of 3 gives you a 3. So this simplifies to be 1 minus 3, which is?
Which is negative 2.
Negative 2 minus
2I times the square root of 3.
2I times the square root of 3. Okay, so now we have to do one more, since we're cubing, and now we've squared, so we have to do one more of that. Okay, so hold on, let's erase a little bit and then multiply it out one more time. So we have to do minus 1 plus I times the square root of 3 times this. Minus 2 minus 2I times the square root of 3. Okay, sorry to erase, but that's what we do. Okay, what do we get when we multiply out here?
So we're going to go like this, down here.
Okay.
So we have 2. Minus 1 times minus 2.
Yep, that's that one.
And then we have plus 2I times the square root of 3.
Alright.
Then we have negative 2I times the square root of 3.
Okay.
And
Now this one's complicated. I times the square root of 3 times minus 2I times the square root of 3.
well, we know that I times the square root of 3 squared is negative 3.
Okay.
So it's going to be negative 6. No, positive 6.
Okay, positive 6. Now let's go through that slowly because there's all kinds of negatives floating around. I times the square root of 3 times minus 2I times the square root of 3. Okay, first we have a minus sign. Right?
Yeah.
Then we have a 2. Then we have I times I, which is?
Negative 1.
So minus 1. And then we have square root of 3 times square root of 3, which is?
3.
3. So we get minus 2 times minus 1 times 3, which is indeed
6.
plus 6. Okay?
Alright, so
what does this simplify to be?
2 plus 6 which is 8.
Okay, miraculously the i's parts cancel out and we're left with 2 plus 6, which is 8, which is exactly what we were hoping for. Which means this cubed does in fact equal 1. And we won't go through all the math on the other one, the negative 1 minus I times the square root of 3.
It's almost the same.
It's almost the same.
But
yeah.
there's a negative.
We have to keep track of the negatives, which is fine. It's not that hard to do. So there you have it. We've solved this equation. We found the 3 roots. And then what I'm going to talk about tomorrow, in tomorrow's video, is something called the fundamental theorem of algebra, which was actually proven by Gauss. Have you ever heard of Gauss before?
Yeah, the guy who did the 1 to 100.
Right. When he was a little kid, he summed up 1 to 100. It turned out he did a few other things too. None of which were as impressive as that. But he did prove something called the fundamental theorem of algebra. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. All right? All right. Good job, sweetie.